Welcome to Team Harrow. Today's guest is Matt Williams, a man who transformed his life from rock bottom to building FROPRO, a thriving protein bar company, and inspiring others as a recovery coach. Get ready for a story of resilience, purpose, and the power of community. So 3, 2, 1, and launch. Matt, thanks for coming on the Team Harrow podcast.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is. I'm glad we were able to make this happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wasn't
months
able.
in the making.
Yes, it is. It is. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the workout in with you prior.
It'll happen.
But we'll definitely do it.
Absolutely.
Especially post Thanksgiving, getting ready for Christmas. I feel like I'm not my normal slim.
Not as svelte as you'd like to be.
Yeah, exactly. My girlish figure. I feel like there's so much to talk to you about, especially just coming on the show. My story, your story, a lot of similarities in terms of overcoming obstacles, resilience, grit. But let's first talk about something that a lot of people may not know about, which is your extreme talent of ballroom dancing.
Outrating. Okay, we're going to it. Sure. Yes. First off, thank you for having me. I appreciate you putting me in the category of your resilience and what you've overcome, which I think is, again, everybody has their thing, but thank you for your service, number one, and thank you for inviting me. And it's always a pleasure to sit down with someone, and it was how we met, actually, because I actually did the ballroom battle for George Snow Scholarship Foundation, where I met your lovely wife, who seemed to not need lessons and casually stroll in after a summer away and just blow everybody else out of the water.
I think there is some truth to that, where I think she only took, you guys got 10 lessons.
I know the number that she did.
Okay, yeah.
9.
Okay,
she only needed 9.
Yeah.
I needed 30 something.
Did you do? I'm sorry. You did the extra.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I do not move like that. I can be the goofball on the dance floor and have fun wherever I'm at a wedding or a part, whatever it is. But when it comes down to learning steps, learning the appropriate move and turn and twist and all the other stuff that goes along with it, a lot of practice.
It paid off, apparently.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, when we watched that video, I forgot about the intro video because I don't hear it when I'm back there, and I was like, man, was that too over the top? Was that too intense? Because I wanted to put a little challenge out there.
Yeah.
And then I watched it back and I kind of cringed. I was like, was that cocky?
It was perfect. I caught the Chappelle Show reference when you said game blouses.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, because I was looking around. I was like, did anyone else get that?
Right.
And then everyone,
because they're like, don't say what the song is because you're not supposed to tell people the song before the actual event.
Yeah.
So I didn't. And they were like, can you give us a tease? And in the question when you do the video, and I'm like, first thing I thought of was Chappelle Show.
Yeah. And plus your outfit too, what you were wearing. I was like
Prince.
I was like, man, this guy.
I was Prince.
Yeah.
a legendary performer and entertainer. And it was a really cool experience.
How uncomfortable was it to get out there and do that?
I think when they prep you for that, and literally they said, Tim said it the night, every night that we talked about it, it was, you're putting your life on hold, quote unquote, for 5 months to really raise some good money, to dance, to learn, to be a part of that organization, which is phenomenal. And it was very uncomfortable in doing the practice sessions in studio, obviously, but also going to the event that they held where the real ballroom people are competing for money, and dancing in front of them kind of lessened the blow of doing it. But then you're standing out there, and Alex Price said it perfectly. He's just like, yeah, I'm just learning how to dance in front of 1,000 of my friends.
No big deal.
And you're the center of attention. And I said I'd much rather be on stage. I used to be in a band. I'd much rather play an instrument, sing, be on stage, because people are engaging in it but also doing their own thing. But when you're dancing for 2.5 minutes, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, when you compare it to something else, and it took somebody that was a mentor of mine, it's literally 2.5 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
Get over it. Even if you fall on your face, it's fun.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's not fun if you fall on your face, but it made sense when he said that. And I was like, you're right. I've done a lot harder things.
Sure. Yeah. For sure.
So.
And being able to step out of your comfort zone, I'd imagine that's something that you've come to fine tune and understand a little more, I guess, over the past 10 plus years of your life, right?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where, you know, obviously we'll dive into that, but like in starting over and getting sober and facing myself and who I had become and what I had become and how I operated and how I was like retreating from society and learning how to live differently and how to operate differently. When you start to overcome those things, and again, you've overcome a lot yourself, you're kind of forced with like, no one's coming to save me. No one's coming to rescue me. I have a tremendous amount of support, but at the end of the day, I have to do these things that are suggested of me to get better, to live better, to operate better, and hopefully share that with someone else that might be sick and suffering or struggling with whatever they're struggling with. So when it comes down to it, the idea of getting out of your comfort zone, you hear it, you know, the books we read, the podcasts we listen to, it's like get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I don't think for me, I don't think I'm truly ever comfortable in that discomfort, but it gets easier and you start to do those things, and it's really cool to do it. Yeah. And it's really cool once you're in the middle of it. Like when I got back on stage in the band, practice for months and months, and when they're like, we're doing a show, I'm like, no, why are we doing a show? This is just fun in the studio. And they're like, no, we're gonna play. And literally the first 5 seconds of 8675309 was the first lead-off song, Jenny, you know. Yeah. And people were up and dancing and people were at the bar, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Yeah. And no one cares if I mess up a note. People are here that love me, and let's just have a good time. I always think of the comfort zone, same thing, where it's not like you have to kind of trick yourself to find comfort in discomfort. Yeah. But it's almost like this elastic bubble where everyone starts with their comfort zone like really, really small, right? Mm-hmm. And as you step out, you start to stretch it and stretch it and stretch it. So it's not that you're just super comfortable being uncomfortable. It's just that you've created your comfort zone is so much more wider, right? And you still have to step out and do the uncomfortable things to continually like work that muscle, right? It's a skill like anything else, like learning a language, where if you're not using that and continuing to push yourself either physically or professionally or mentally or spiritually, that will start to shrink, right? Yeah, and then I think it gets people, or it got me into a place where it's like you're so uncomfortable and you don't want to change because the fear of that is really real. And you know, you could have people be like, well, you know, why are you doing this, or how come this is happening, and you let down other people. And for me, like I'm a people pleaser. Yeah. And it's something I've worked on in sobriety, where it's like, it's okay to say no, it's okay to, you know, not be everywhere. And it's like, I like to be everywhere because I really truly enjoy being around people. I love doing podcasts or going to, you know, events and slinging peanut butter snack bars and whatever I can do, because I feel like I don't want to say wasted so much time, but I lived in that darkness for so long because of my own fear. And it's like constantly, like you said, just expanding that bubble and eventually, like, I don't want to say like there is no bubble. It just like becomes so vast where you're like, I can, in this, I don't want to sound the wrong, I can literally do anything. Yeah. Anything I put my mind to. It might not work out immediately. It might take years. I might have to be super patient. But like accepting those challenges and doing those things, it really does improve your character. It you know, you don't know if you're inspiring or helping somebody else while you do it. Yeah. And it's like, why not? You know, like I love being at home. I love being at home when I get, you know, that time and there's always a time for recharge. But then I get that itch where I'm like, all right, like what's next? Yeah. You know, like what do I want to do? What do I want to push myself for? And I think that, you know, when you stop doing that, you're not really living, I guess. Yeah. Like your true potential. Which you're not progressing. Right. You're not progressing. It sounds so corny, but you know, it's like I didn't get sober and get the opportunity to just like sit around and do nothing and not, you know, take risks. And that's a huge thing that I think I struggled with for a long time. Yeah. Is taking a risk. You know, I remember in starting, you know, in getting a space for FROPRO. When I finally got, I asked like probably more than a handful of people to tell me not to do it. And no one did. And they weren't like blowing smoke on my ass. They were just saying.
With
like,
the idea of...
well, yeah, I was just like, I need a space. I got to do this. And it's just so much to take on in a building and this and that and the other thing. And they're like, do it. Like, why not? And,
yeah.
And they knew I was ready. And like, a year or two ago, they said, you weren't ready. Now you're ready. And it's like you said, like you grow and grow and grow. And you get to a point where it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to do this. I think I'm ready to take that step and to take that risk. And if I fall on my face, like I fall on my face so hard publicly in my family, in a community, in like all these little communities that I was a part of. And when you mess up publicly, I mean, it's debilitating, but then you have the opportunity to either like constantly have that hold you back and live in the past, or just say, hey, that was a part of my life, that was a chapter, that was a page, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to move forward and do these things. And as I feel like I'm like 43 years old. It's like as I get a little bit older and a little bit more time and understanding and dealing with people, and I learn a lot, right? Like, I mean, you had a brotherhood that you were a part of, and you're part of a family, and you have your own family, and it's like we all these little communities that we're a part of, and like you can operate pretty much the same way, I believe, in all of those, with maybe some maybe certain ways that you talk to people or not, depending on what community you're in. But being true to yourself, right? And being like, hey, this is me, and I know what this felt like, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I know what feels good, and it not only feels good, but it doesn't hurt anyone else. How do I do that moving forward and live that way and speak that way? And I still struggle with that, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't want to,
Well, it's like you started to say, it's it's hard to say no, right? Like for a lot of things. Yeah. And a friend of mine and a guy that I work with with Pam, we were just talking about how he's like, going forward, I really need to learn how to say no more. Yeah. And it's something hard, because he also wants to be a people pleaser and wants to help people out. But at the same time, it could be a detriment to like yourself, the business, personal, and it's tough to overextend yourself. And I think, we all do it, but that is
and you learn from a lot of the people pleasing and doing those things where, I don't want to say doing things, there's a lot of transactional things, but I don't want to say doing something you necessarily don't want to expect something in return. But like if I do something and I say yes to something and it doesn't work out, if it were to come up again down the line, I can say, hey, yeah, no, I'm good, and like I wish you the best and good luck with that. Oh, well, why not? Yeah, it's just not, no.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like can't do it.
I know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you're in an industry that deals with food or whatever, where people if they pay for your product, you're expecting a response, good, bad, indifferent, or no response is a response. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about not taking things personal, and that's can be really challenging as well, because I want everybody to like what I make.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was very hesitant about letting anybody know it was me, because I didn't want anybody to feel bad for me. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a guy that lost everything, like he's got this cool thing, like let's make him feel good. I didn't want anybody to feel bad for me, and like I know what I did. I knew my alcoholism and addiction ruined my life, and while it's a part of my story and a very big part, I wanted to move forward and do things the right way, and in a good way, and get a true response from somebody, not like, hey, like
your pity bars are delicious.
You're doing good, buddy. Keep up the good work.
I'll talk about it in 1 second. I hate the pity, but these I'll give you my honest assessment is these have been delicious. And I was told by my wife when I was like, hey, I'm gonna go and sit with Matt today on the podcast. She's like, oh, that's awesome. What are you doing with that box of bars? I was like, oh, well, I didn't want to ask him to bring, because... I
was going to, by the way, too, but I didn't know. Sometimes when you come into a business, and they already have, like, when they have a tremendous spread out there, like, what are you bringing outside food in here for?
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
But like you were talking about, I didn't want to like overstep and be like, you
No.
know, because I respect when people say no. So I was like,
No.
let me bring up my private stash.
No.
And I was
I appreciate
I was
that.
explicitly told by my wife,
Bring them
you
home.
better bring those bring those bars home.
Right. Well, I will make sure that all of that gets returned and then some.
No, I appreciate it. They've been delicious.
Yeah.
Warm, sitting in my car all day.
Yeah, that
refrigerated.
works. Yep.
I was wondering about it actually when I was having one for lunch, and I'm not even bullshitting you about that. How did you come up with the idea?
So, I was literally working like kind of like a recovery job, where it's a job where it's not overly challenging or stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
I'd worked in a kitchen right out of treatment. Was doing prepared meals before they were like legit. Now they are.
Yeah.
Like, you see them around, like actual businesses where they have all these prepared. So I was doing all these. I was cooking and I was doing all this stuff that lasted for a couple months. Went to an office job, and I was just sitting there, and I was working at a job for a family friend, and it was one of those things where they gave me. It was like not a pity job, but it was like, hey, you can help us out. We'll give you projects. And it was like, here's this project you have till Friday, and it's Monday, and I'd finish by Wednesday, and I'd be like, hey, you got anything else for me to do? And they're like, just sit there, and when we need you, we'll get you. I'm like, okay. So I had some free time. So, and a lot of that kind of when you lose everything, and you're starting from scratch, and you don't have a ton of ability to do let's just say whatever you want. I was biking everywhere. I had lost the ability to drive because of my decisions and getting a DUI and losing my license. So I was biking around everywhere. And if you bike in South Florida, and I've shared this countless times, it's you got to pack a bag. It's usually a change of clothes because it could rain and then be sunny.
Yeah.
A towel and some form of food and water just to get around town. And not many people struggle with that down here. And public transportation isn't the best down here. Just to put that out there. So it was a lot of walking, running, or biking, or chaining my bike to a sign and hopefully coming back to it at another time. So I needed something. And I literally was like, what do I have? And I just started making this peanut butter concoction in my kitchen, bringing it with me to train clients, to tutor kids, because I was a teacher for a long time. And it just kind of was one of those things where people are like, what are you eating? And I'm like, oh, it's just a little thing I make. And I would share it with people. Like, wow, this is really good. I'm like, cool, glad you like it.
Yeah.
Just keep it moving, right? And then, one of my I don't want to say like students or somebody that I tutored and I coached in the fitness side. It was kind of cool. Like certain families would hire me. The kids would come home from school. I would, tutor them in the homework and go over anything they were struggling with. And it was like, now we're going to go work out for 45 minutes to an hour outside. I had, some equipment that I would bring. And a lot of the homes down here, some of them have the home gyms and they have neighborhood gyms, and we could go use that. And one of these moms tried it, and she's like, this is really good. And, her kid tried it, and the kid doesn't eat anything healthy. This is healthy. And I'm like, yep, 100%. And it just kind of evolved from there, right? It was one of those things where she thought it was a business. I had no idea what she was talking about. She said, go test this out. I still didn't know what she was talking about. And I really didn't do anything with it for a while until I started working at a friend's gym and teaching the 5:30 a.m. class and kind of getting into that community of getting back into fitness again and feeling comfortable standing in front of a room of people and not like a failure, and getting good response and good energy from people. And I ended up sharing the product and without my name attached to it, just as like a, hey, this is something that
someone passes to me,
a local business owner dropped off, and I got to see real responses, and I got to see true feelings about the product, and they were good. And it just kind of led to one lady trying it and being like, hey, I have a juice bar before juice bars exploded, and she's like, I'd like to carry these in my juice bar. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, she's like, can you make 100? I'm like, no. I know how to make 10. And she was like, well, do that. She was like, essentially, it's like, do that 10 times.
Yeah.
And then bring me 100 bars. And that that's how it started. And then it was just like, kind of like a slow grassroots sharing it with this person and that person, and this person heard about it. And I soon had this little thing of like people purchasing the product, selling it at their stores, at their smoothie bars, at their coffee houses, at their food places, and it just kind of was a fun hobby while I was rebuilding my life and paying off my debts and trying to figure out, again, still where I was, I got sober at 28, so it's like 29, 30, 31 of what am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's, no one's hiring a teacher with fortunately I didn't have like a crazy record. It was just like a smudge. And no one down here, of course, has smudges. So hiring a teacher with a bad, one bad thing wasn't happening. So it was a tough pill to swallow for a while, but just kept at it. And I think one of the things that was remarkable about the process was I had a lot of people that supported me genuinely and gave me the time of day. I had people that were like, hey, this is really cute, man, but like, kick rocks. This is a legitimate business. Thank you for your time. Totally understand. And I learned a lot of lessons. And I learned, that not everybody's going to like what I do. I learned, that most, when it comes to food, people are very specific and can be picky. And you'll get truth from, it's like, when it comes to food or beverage, people will tell you, like, like little kids will tell you anything, right?
Yeah.
Like they just say what they say. And it kind of prepared me for as we continued to do this, and people are like, what's this FROPRO thing? And I was like, it's just a peanut butter snack bar I make, and I like wrote things down in a notebook and with pencil, I don't have any of that business experience other than like selling golf balls as a kid, living on a golf course, like doing odd jobs and working for my dad, and just like.
You mean you didn't graduate from Harvard Business School?
No, I did
with
not.
a bunch of private equity money to go create a protein peanut butter bar?
Wow. God, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very interesting learning process, and like we had some really good friends that were lawyers that kind of like helped me like understand like, hey, like
really create like a structure of everything.
A structure, and they're like, hey, you've been doing this for a little bit, like, do you have like records? And I'm like, yeah, no, everything's sitting in an account and I don't touch it. And they're like,
and here's my box of receipts.
Right, yeah. Literally, it was like from dodgeball. Yeah, we got a closet of receipts over here. But everybody along the way, man, there's been a lot of really instrumental people that have given me a chance, shared their experience with their field and how to do things the right way, or better than I was doing them. And it just kind of evolved. And it's what's cool today is my wife Chelsea, who's an amazing woman. She is the business. She is the CEO. I can't sit at the desk. I can sit at a desk, but I'm not very good at it. I love this stuff.
Yeah.
I love getting in front of people, going to events, hyping people up, getting people excited, working out, moving, and we complement each other really well. And now we have this amazing team. Like today itself, I had the time to get on the line and make the actual product again. And I've been trying to do that again just to feel that, we have this really great team. And sometimes I have to walk through and just say, hey, how's everybody? Good morning. And I'm off to do other things that I get to do because of a great team. And today it was just so great. Just literally sitting in there we were making toasted mallow bars, and just like the music was going and everybody's got a role.
Yeah.
And and obviously having an extra pair of hands, sometimes I feel like I'm getting in the way. But like learning the whole process and then watching somebody like our director of operations, Emily, I mean, we've known her since middle school. And she runs the day-to-day of my business, of our business.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because she's learned everything that I've learned from start to finish, like taking apart the machines, doing things that, I never thought I'd have to do as a business owner. And like, I can be handy, but quite honestly, I'd rather hire somebody to do it. And like, you're forced to learn certain things about a business. You're forced to learn certain things, about the process if you want to be able to bring someone else on to do that, so you can continue to do other things and help grow the business. So it's just a really cool spot. We got a couple of guys that got sober that are, it's kind of a recovery job for some people, and some have stayed, and they're like, I'm not going anywhere, which just like totally reinforces like the feeling of like I'm doing something right, and it feels good, and it's a safe, fun environment where there's no overwhelming pressure or, like we had one guy one time like just made a mistake, and I was like, I just kind of sat there and like it was handled, and I didn't hear anything of it till later. And I could see how ashamed he was, or just upset. And I was just like, dude, it's all good, man. Like, it'll get fixed.
Yeah.
And like, it may cost a good amount of money.
Yeah.
But like, it happens. It's not like you did it. You know, it's like those things where like I've been on the receiving end of that. Like, you moron, you idiot. Like, it doesn't feel good.
Yep.
And like, I don't operate that way because I've never operated being spoken to that way. It doesn't make me feel good. I don't respond with the yelling, and I can assume that there was a lot of that with your line of work, where lives are on the line.
Yeah.
It's a peanut butter snack. Lives, peanut butter, different. But it's really cool to see the community of that little family we have evolve, because like I don't have kids of my own, and it's just really cool to be a part of that and give that back like that was given to me when I was starting over. You know what I mean?
No, totally. I mean, to hear the story, the genesis where you're just making protein, basically just peanut butter snack bars to fuel yourself, bicycling around from job to job, to fast forward to now, what, almost 15 years later?
Yeah.
Right?
So idea in 2011.
I was a recruited athlete, so I don't do public math.
No,
I'm
yeah.
adding that as a disclaimer.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, idea in 2011, business in 13, wife came on board 2016. We opened our own facility in 2018, expanded in 2022. So we say we've been in business for 11 years, since the official business of it in 2013, almost 12 years now.
Yeah.
But truthfully, it didn't really feel like we were doing any. It was like a hobby still until we really invested in the infrastructure and the machines and the things that are going on in there. And we've had some tremendous people along the way, and I wish everybody could stay, and other, people have other things they want to do, which I totally respect. And we've had some people have some, tough conversations for them where I'm like, hey man, go do what you want to do. Like, I would never hold somebody back from going to do what they want to do, or have another opportunity, because it's a tough conversation. Like, go do what you love. Because I've been in jobs where I'm like, I don't love this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you're paying me. But when I wake up and I'm, it's like the Sunday scaries. When I wake up and I'm like, fuck, I gotta go there Monday.
I know that very well.
Right?
But I was just going to put an exclamation point to that to start from that, the genesis of that, to you walking in today and telling me that you just dropped off 10,000 bars at the Tony Robbins event up at the convention center for this weekend. Like,
what's crazy about that too? We produced all of those on Monday.
That's crazy.
And we dropped, and they were, and we wouldn't be able to do that. We've been asked in the past to participate.
Yeah.
And we couldn't.
And they're very big on the quality of food there, because when I went to that one event up at the convention center with my buddy Cam, which I'm sure you saw that episode that we talked about, since you follow us on social media. I'm joking.
Right?
No,
I hope.
I know you do. I know you do.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed, that they're so big on not just like the physical and mental piece of what's going on in there, but also when you come out to get a snack, I was like, this is vegan, this is healthy. Like, they're very big on that. And I was talking to the coffee guy, and they said that, like,
which one was it? Oceana?
Yes.
Yeah. I saw them setting up today. I was like, good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them.
So, I mean, that in itself is like another like stamp of approval that the Tony Robbins army has accepted you into their world.
And it's been years. We haven't been able to really do anything. And I know his trainer eats it. He orders. He's very supportive of us. Some of his people eat it. He eats it. It's like it's remarkable, and it's like, it's crazy to think. Like, I've seen with the power of social media. I'm not allowed to touch the FROPRO account. That's handled by the team of awesome women that run that. The
social media for you?
No, FROPRO for the channel.
Like,
I get to look at it.
Yeah.
But it's cool when they share, like, hey, so and so ate it in LA, or so and so ate it in New York, and I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. And to that person,
it's got to be surreal to see, like,
whoever they are.
There's LeBron eating a FROPRO bar.
Like, it was like Jimmy Butler. I was like, what? I was like, that's wild.
Yeah.
And again, it's cool, but it's cool for like, and not to knock it. It's cool for like a second, right?
Yeah.
It's like we've had some really cool events and really cool, our story, has been told in a national setting and shared, and with the quickness of how everything operates, it's truly like 5 minutes of quote unquote fame or acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
and then the cycle,
and you keep going.
Yeah.
And you can't hang your stuff on that, right? You can share it and be proud of it, but it's like, there's so many evolutions in like the CPG, consumer products goods space, where it's like, we're an indulgent peanut butter snack bar. We do peanut butter snacks really well. I know there's other things I'd like to do, but until I feel like this is a true home run nationally, which we're working on, I don't want to divert from that purpose of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because this is what started. And again, like, I love ideas and I love.
Well, a lot of businesses get in trouble with like starting to stray away from. And
I've seen it. I've seen businesses go bankrupt or out of business because they had a VC firm or they had someone else. And listen, that's great. And if everybody's end goal. And I talked to this one guy one time through a connection. I got connected to a guy in a very high level brand, and his mission wasn't to create this product and sell it. His product, and they were national. He goes, we created this product to change this category because of the shit that's in this category, and we want to stand out. Maybe down the line we'll sell when we're done. Mm-hmm. He's like, but we are far from done. And then it's like, okay, what's done mean? And like I've seen it. Let's take Cliff Bar, right? He sold the company, and from again, I'm piecing this together from my knowledge that might be off in a little way, so don't take it word for word. He brought in a partner. Partner was as committed. They sold. Company went to shit. Product went to shit. He bought back his company for way more than he sold it for, and started over, and took 30 years. Mm-hmm. And finally, in his late 60s, he and his wife not only invested in the employees and them having a piece of the company when they left, but they left, sold, and all the employees who were still working got a substantial amount of money.
Wow.
And I was like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that. And I just want to, end of the day, I want to share the experience of our journey of this. I want to be able to connect with people on the mental health, sobriety aspect, and if I can help in any way. And I also want to make people feel good with what we're doing and how we're doing it. Chelsea and I always say, like, this could end tomorrow. It could go on another year. It can go on another 10 years. I don't know. We're going to continue to do our best. We have a lot of people that believe in us, but like, we can't control the outcome.
Yeah.
And we've, when we say we've been around for a while, there's other companies that have come after us that have already sold in 3 to 4 years, and they're on to doing other things.
Yeah.
And it's tough not to compare, and it's tough not to be like, what did we fucking do wrong?
You can't measure I feel like
right.
Things that I've done successfully, you kind of got to swallow that pill, right? And be like, I'm not going to compare myself to the person on my left or right. I'm just going to focus on the effort that I put in, what I know that I've done to succeed, right? Like at the end of the day, it's just the man in the mirror that is like the ultimate critic, right?
Right. And again, it's like, how many, let's flip this to you. It's like, how many people did you serve with, number one, and again, I don't mean to say this wrong, that aren't here anymore.
Yeah. Number
two, that might have excelled and went the administration route. Is that after service? Like, if you go to
like a desk job you're talking about in the military, kind of?
Yeah. Is that administrative? Or?
Yeah. And especially as an officer,
or
as
excelled in that,
yes. As you progress through the chain of command and you continue to and you choose to stay in,
right?
I mean, you're no longer like an action guy or on the line, right? You're really kind of riding a desk or in some sort of command position, but even at the command level, for the most part, and a good leader shouldn't be down there, shouldn't always be there. I'll use you as an example. A good leader shouldn't always 9 through 5 on Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, be making the bars, right? You have other things you need to do as a leader.
Sure.
But a good leader goes down there, checks in on what's going on, makes sure the bars are being made to the standard, maybe you do want to get in there and like roll your sleeves up a little bit to show that you're like, hey, I still know what I'm doing. Like I'm here working with you guys. That's a great example of leadership, right?
And I love that too, because that's like one of the funniest things. Like going back to our director of operations, like knowing this girl since middle school, and then like I walk in, I'm like, hey, what do you need? What do you need me to do? Like, you need to be over there. You need to do this, this, and this. You got it.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a flow, and there's kind of, like you said, a chain of command. She runs the show in there.
Yeah.
Just because I'm in there, I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so cool to have that, because it just feels good. You know, it's a great feeling.
Well, when you have strong, from the military side, right? They're called non-commissioned officers, so like senior enlisted. You know, like think of like a sergeant that's been around for a while, and someone that can step in, kind of run the day-to-day and knows the operation. That just makes your job so much easier as a leader, because you don't have to, you know, you're not going to lose sleep at night thinking,
Right.
holy shit, are we prepared, right?
Yeah, sure.
Or trying to do everything yourself, because I've served with really strong NCOs, and I've served with really weak NCOs, and those NCOs make you shine and make you look great as a leader. And as a good leader, you should know that it's actually the NCOs that made you look so good, or if your platoon was successful in a mission, if your team was successful in a mission, it was because you have great NCOs supporting you as a leader. Vice versa, I've been on some teams where it was weak senior leadership, and as a team leader, you have to step in and kind of play team sergeant sometimes, and it's hard to wear two hats, right?
So let me ask a question. With the weak NCOs, was it a problem with the actual person, their ego, and what the power that it gave them, or was it they just weren't altogether there and like understanding the purpose of their position?
So the weak NCOs that I had, that I'm thinking come to mind, I think it was a personality thing. I don't think that it was, I mean, each one was kind of different in their own regard. You know, one I think was placed in a mission set that he probably wasn't prepared for. And we as a team said, all right, we will let him do his thing over there. We'll kind of handle the mission, but the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. And it's probably better for us as a team to handle this internally, and this is team business, instead of going higher and be like, hey man, this guy's all fucked up. He's not doing A, B, C, and D. And then, you know, the spotlight's really on you guys. So we just made the decision as a team, like, all right, I can handle him. I'm comfortable with him handling these little tasks. Let him do that. And then we'll handle all of like more of the heavy stuff going on.
Got it.
And then that's my examples of like weak team leaders, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like in any organization, right? I've definitely worked for places where I learned what not to do.
Yeah.
And how to interact with
my
others.
first job out of the Army, working for a cybersecurity company, which kind of circling back to that feeling of the Sunday scaries, that was a great 2-year experience of, one, welcome to the civilian workforce. You know, you're not in the military anymore. And two, it was a great lesson learned of what to do and what not to do. And I feel like a lot of the what not to do were the things that I like took away. Like the things of like what to do, to me that was just like common sense. Like show up on time, eye contact, don't be an asshole. You know, like
don't be an asshole.
Yeah, build rapport with the people
thought?
that you're working with, right? Yeah. Common sense isn't that common, right? And then the other things about, you know, building a business and how to lead people. I'm like, that's not what you do. Like that, you don't. I felt like, you know, you don't lie to people in that regard, or, you know, trying to build this, you know, my experience there, my biggest takeaway was I got asked to build up really like a startup of government business, which I was like, all right, this is great for two worlds that I
excel
work,
at,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, where I understand the government world. I still have all my secret clearances. I can have a conversation with anyone in the military because I served, like we're coming from the same tribe.
Sure.
And that on the other end, like I'm able to be given this ambiguous problem of go create government out of nothing, create government business for us, right? And so I like that challenge of like, all right, startup. Like that's what I thought I wanted to do was something in like the startup world. I just didn't have like a peanut butter bar I was making or anything else.
Yeah.
I was given something to go create.
Yeah.
And that's something I like. I like the challenge of that, the mental aspect of it. And it's I had to do it one of my internships that I did, because I did a lot of internships coming out of the hospital, trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I didn't want to end up retiring. That was like my biggest fear was, retiring on Monday and then Tuesday, what do I do? So I wanted to make sure before Monday hits, like 9 months prior, I got everything lined up. So it's just another day that ends with Y for me.
Yes.
And so one of the internships I did was for an IT company that did a lot of government contracting, and the guy that owned it, their company was called Intelligent Waves. The guy, Jared Shepard, super great dude, also came from the military and supported special operations as well with their company. And he said, hey, I have this idea I'd like to do something to help give back to wounded warriors. And a lot of us coming from the military, because he came from the military as well, that transition piece, right, that you always hear about, that how tough it is, and coming out of the military and figuring out like what to do. And part of the reason that I got into to do an internship there was he was partnering with SOCOM, not just on the business side, but to help out the wounded warrior transition piece there at Walter Reed. And said, hey, if anybody wants to learn about what I do, I'd love, I'll have them there because I want to help with guys transition. And he wanted to formulate that more into like an organized nonprofit basically, and like fundraise and create it. And so one of my tasks there was, he's like, hey, hey Ben, create this nonprofit for me basically. So I was like, all right, I'll figure it out. So how do I start a nonprofit? Like, what do we need to do? Like, all right, well, we need this, we need this, we need this. And I just started, and I came up with a list, and I think I like kind of caught him off guard of like, hey man, like we need a PO box. Do we have our official document from like the IRS, saying that we're a 501c3, and can you put me in touch with the attorneys because we need to make sure that we have this covered. Are we using this as the address? I'm like starting to really formalize it, and that was another great lesson learned. But the Sunday Scary thing at the end of like the last 6 months of me working at that cybersecurity company, and like I said, great people there. It's not like I totally hated my life every day. In fact, the reason that I got a job at PamJets and helped this startup was because the guy that I met there, like the last 6 months, I remember when I used to have to go and do meetings and like present with engineers, I'd have to put on like my iBoss shirt and like walk out the door. And I was like, man, this is what strippers must feel like walking on stage, because I fucking hate my life right now going in there and be like, all right, who's excited about the CISO command center? Do you guys bring your own device onto the premise? Like, do you guys excited about that? Let me connect you with my engineer and we can kind of problem solve. Let me show you the dashboard.
Just you doing that, I'm uncomfortable because I'm like, that's not you. And I don't even know you that well, other than
my God, one of my favorite stories is Dave and I are at I forget if it's called Black Hat or whatever the big IT conference was in Vegas, right? And it's Vegas and the conferences, and I felt like I was like a guy that played varsity football, and then I'm back at school because everyone's like, yeah, you're gonna go party, you go drink, and I'm like 33 with a family, and like I'm just trying to figure out my life, and I'm like, dude, I'm not like looking to get fucked up in Vegas every night here. I'm just trying to like
build something.
Yeah. And we were at the booth, and I'm folding T-shirts with my buddy Dave. I'm like, hey, you got any more mediums? Like for swag? And I turn to Dave and I go, I used to be a leader of men, but now here I am, like talk about like taking a piece of humble pie.
Yeah.
And but just my personality and like my way, like mentally, like I took it with a laugh. Like I wasn't like, because I know a lot of people that could have very easily been like, fuck my life. Here I am folding T-shirts. I used to be jumping out of planes. I used to be responsible for millions of dollars worth of equipment. I used to be responsible for other Americans' lives and hundreds of Afghans or Colombians, wherever you are doing stuff in the world. And here I am making sure that there's enough, clicky pens for people to take as like a gift. And like everyone's ignoring me when I'm talking about like our product, right?
Sure. Man, you described a lot of what demo shows can be like and interacting with and my side of things. But what I think about, and it comes back to not the pens. I was gonna say something, but like you said the pens and it threw me off. But yeah, you really appreciate, right, where it's like when I was starting over, I didn't really complain because I knew what I had done, but I remember it was just one bad day, not one bad day, but it was I was having a bad day.
Yeah,
I was having a bad day.
Like the day.
Yeah, the day it was my bike, a flat tire on my bike, and then it just wasn't going my way. And I remember calling, a guy that I called like when I was in a jam, and hey man, this is where I'm at, and kind of letting it rip like a dump session.
Yeah.
He was kind of like, hey man, are you finished? I was like, yep. He's like, I just want you to realize that you're here because of your own decisions. I was like, yep. He's like, it's okay. You're aware. I said, yeah, I just needed to get that. He's like, do you feel better? I said, a little bit. He goes, great. Call me later. And I had a lot of those interactions. And I had one with, specifically that I share, I was employed by a former student's father. And he's just one super well-to-do, very smart, built everything himself, didn't come from anything, from the Northeast. And one day he's like, hey, get in here. He's like, so can you, he kind of was like, Joe, he's like, tell me what happened. He's like, tell me what happened. And I told him the story. And I was like, pour me and whatever. And he's like, can I tell you something? I was like, yeah. And I was like waiting. He goes, yeah, no one fucking cares. And I was like, this motherfucker just asked me my story. And I finally told him what happened that night when I messed him up. And again, this is, I was a teacher for his kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, listen, he goes, people care about you. He goes, no one cares about that. It happened. It's months past. What are you going to do about it? And I've had a lot of those conversations over the years. And a lot of them, some stick out more than others. But I will never forget that. I will never forget this guy who is like living, like I looked at him and I was like, this guy has everything because he's earned it. And I was like, this guy just basically told me, like, hey, let me hear about this and get fucked. And I was like, oh. I was devastated, but I understood why he did it.
Yeah. And
those are the things where, like, if I was still drinking or doing my thing, I would have used that as arsenal for like a pity party. And you can't believe what this guy said to me, But I've had so many of those coming to Jesus truth moments or knowledge bombs that people have dropped that have been around the block longer than me. And it's never personal. Sometimes it is. Like, I've had people be like, hey, man, you're being an asshole, and here's why. And here's what you need to take a look at. And it's not them being mean. It's like, hey, like, I know I see it. So if you do that to someone else that can't call you out on it, like, there's let me just point this out to you. And I value those people. And I don't want to like walk on eggshells around people, but I also don't engage with like, it's like if you're arguing with a fool, you're the other fool.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm not calling people fools, but like, I don't want to get into silly arguments. I am emotional. I am sensitive. There are things that bother me. And, like I have great communication with the people that I call on in my accountability. And I number one being my wife. Like, I've never had communication with another woman like my wife. Since before we were married, there was just something about her, and like she's just so like sassy and to the point and just like, bah! I need that.
Yeah.
And it keeps me balanced. And it's like, some days like she might not be that and I get to be that, but like that's usually really rare. But it's like having those teams, right? Or those groups or that family dynamic or whatever you have or whatever you're going through, where it's like, I hope people are looking to push me to be better, right? I'm hoping that someone's like, hey, here's what I see. I don't know if you see it. And sometimes that hurts. And I'm like, I don't see that. But then if I really truly think about it, and I remember, like, I will, like, again, always goes back to getting sober. It's like, when I first took a look at myself in a mirror when I walked into treatment and I was by myself, they searched my bag as if I was going to bring something into rehab. Like, that was, and apparently people do.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure people try and sneak shit in there.
Had no clue.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I'm like, what do I do now? They're like, yeah, you just hang out here and this is when this starts. Just kind of sit with yourself for a while. And I was like, sit with myself. I remember walking into the little single bed, shared a room with another guy, bathroom. And I remember just looking at myself for the first time in the mirror and being like, what's wrong?
Like how the fuck did I end up here?
Right.
Yeah.
And realizing I never wanted to ever say that again. And, there are moments, obviously, in business where I'm like, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
Or like, what are we going to do about this?
But it's never to the same.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I never want to go back. I never want, it's like, yes, we learn from our past, and we learn from the history of what we've done and other people's histories. And that's one of the powers of the program that I'm in, where it's like I still go to these meetings to experience strength and hope, to learn from the people that have done it for years and their truth, and then to learn from the people that are still figuring it out and realizing it's not getting any better out there if you decide to do some more research and development. It hasn't gotten better. I've never heard one person come back and be like, you guys got to check this out. I had this really good experience. I just lost this, bop, 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 bop. And that's why it's like, I've been accused of being really intense. Sometimes it's off-putting for people, and like, it's never my intention, but that's just how I feel about the fact that I have a day of life today.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't want to waste my time bullshitting. I was having a conversation before coming here where I said, I think I understand why these, like, when do you reach curmudgeon status? Like, there's a reason why there's like these old time curmudgeon guys, because they lived around shitty people for so long. Probably some good people too, and they just, like, it's exhausting. And and I just find, like, I have my boys, it's like, but the circle gets smaller, right? Like, you have an adorable, awesome family it's just cool to see, right? So that's your unit.
Yeah.
It's like, I have my wife and my cat. You know what I mean? Like, I was never a cat guy. Became a cat guy. But like, even, and not to say anything's wrong, even like people I've known since kindergarten or whatever, everybody's doing their own thing. And you see them when you see them. And it's like, you have your buddies that, like, you may not talk to them for 6 months. Same thing when you meet up with them, which is cool.
Yeah.
But then you have then you kind of, you almost like you gravitate, right? Like, you're working for this company, you gravitate towards people that are like you,
yeah.
that you want to learn from, you want to be around, that are like, hey, I want to go do this. I want to go figure this shit out over here. And not that there's anything wrong with, you say like the 9 to 5, nothing wrong with that, right? I just know it's not for me. Could I end up there again? Maybe, by choice. Do I want to teach again? I might. I always loved it. Standing in front of a classroom, it was great. I just lost the ability to do it because of my decisions. So it's like, all these things, like, there's so much cool shit you can do. And again, coming back to the dancing, whatever it is, like, there's so much cool shit you can do. Starting a nonprofit, traveling to Spain to watch your kid excel at soccer, or your daughter dance up a storm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and it's like, I don't want to miss any of that. I mean, I know you don't want to miss it. I'm assuming you don't want to miss any of that. And it's like, I missed all that shit for so long because I was so selfish and self-centered, and just like me. And sometimes the opposite of, like, giving, and it's like hard to, sometimes it's you kind of like, there's a transaction, and it's almost like sometimes you have to just, if the communication is a one-way street, sometimes that street gets closed forever in the nicest way possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting too, as you get older, you start to realize your circle of friends, you want to do what you want to do,
right?
And you're so busy, and Gina and I talk about it all the time, like, well, what are we doing this weekend? To be honest, we're busy, and we always joke about, like, we have dance, we have soccer, we have this, we have that. Gina wants to throw another Christmas party, and I'm like, I don't want 100 people in the house, you know.
Yeah.
But it's great seeing everybody. Like, at the end of the day, though, we're doing what we want to do.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's great, you know. And you have your friends, and it's interesting you say that. Like, I have a very close group of friends that I went to college and played lacrosse with. I have, you know, great military friends as well, and it's like these different little circles and cliques, right? Yeah. And whenever I'm up in New York, we try and get together for dinner, and I will probably see them twice a year, but it's just like
it's great.
We leave off like just where we like, as if we're in the locker room again,
100%
busting each other's balls,
yes.
Right? And we still talk and text with each other, and then other friends. It's interesting, you know. I don't know why or how it happens, but they kind of just fall off and they're doing their own thing, you know, which is fine.
It's great. It's that reason, season, or lifetime, you know. And sometimes in that lifetime, it might be, you know, years where you don't, and then you reconnect. I mean, that happens very common in the sobriety world, where you might not talk to someone for a while, and not in a bad way, and then like, hey, I need a little help, or hey, I got a buddy that needs a little help. What do you think? And at least you're there, you know what I mean? Like, at least, you know, like, you know, you've gone through, you know, tough times. And I'm sure there's people that have been like, yo, man, like, you're this, like, chiseled brick of muscle that has obviously gone through these hard times. I got a buddy that just doesn't think he's going to be able to do whatever, having experienced a situation.
There's such a strong parallel as I hear you talk about it, and I'm thinking in my mind of, like, guys that I am great friends with, guys that I served with in the military, especially in the Special Forces Regiment, that, you know, we all go through, I mean, you go through selection, which in itself is a huge physical and mental, like, selection process.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And then, you know, dealing with the stressors of combat. And it's the same thing I hear when you talk about people that have gone through a similar stressor, right? Like, call it whatever it is,
right?
But they overlap perfectly with one another in terms of...
It can be a life-ending stressor.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
And then those are probably people that you know have gone through the ringer, that you can probably pick up, that you're saying, like, hey, man, like, there's not many people that know that what we've gone through. I need to talk to you about something, right? It's interesting to think about that of... You know, you don't normally think about guys that were Green Berets and then guys that have gone through the sobriety piece and kind of come out the other end and be like, oh, there's actually some similarities there.
I got a great guest for you. I got to link you up. I've been thinking about it since I sat down here. He's just, I think, you know, served is quite the personality and just really good. Just has some just wild stories because he's gone through both of those things.
Yeah.
And... good buddy of mine, and I definitely I need you guys to connect for sure. It'd be a great episode.
No, that'd be awesome.
Don't want to tell you what to do, but
no,
as I'm when you said that, I was like, oh, wait, that's so boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, you know, as I've continued to do this, because this has been a giant exercise of stepping out of my comfort zone of like, all right, this kind of feels right, and I've said it before on here, but like I swear to God, and this is a truth, like God honest truth. Ever since I've started doing the podcast, which it's not like some big revenue producing thing. In fact, I pay to come in here and do this every time, right? But it just felt right. And I feel like there's been these little breadcrumbs in life that somebody's throwing out there that like, keep doing it. You're doing the right thing, like affirmation. And like just last week, one of my daughter's friend's moms was over at the house and like, you know, dropping off her kid or picking up her daughter or whatever it was. And she goes, Ben, I caught your podcast the other day. I was like, she's like, I love it. Like, I love listening to the shorts. And Gina was like, wait, what? Like, you listen? Like, I was like, you're one of my 127 subscribers. Like, yeah. But she's like, honestly, I find it so interesting the people that you have come on, like, talk about, like, their challenges and struggles and things that they've been successful with and things that they haven't, and just kind of, like, having a conversation. I was like, thank you. I was like, that's great to hear. Like, and it's one of those things where it's, like, in my mind, I'm like, all right, you're doing something right. Even if it's, like, one person that gets something out of it, I feel like, all right, just keep doing it.
And that's one of the biggest things that I learned, too, because for a while I was it's deal with, I mean, you've dealt with, I'm sure, shame, embarrassment, guilt, whatever, fear. And I think because you care what people think, and anybody who says, oh, I don't really care what people think, everyone does.
Yeah.
It just is. It's on some level you do. And I was so worried about talking about sobriety, because there's certain things in the fellowship that I attend where it's like not part of the deal. It's part of the traditions. Totally get it. But when I want to be honest about my life, my experience, strength, and hope, and I was like, someone would be like, no, hey Matt, no one fucking cares, right? Like that thing I said. But if I can help one person, and while this is intense, if I can help one person, that's cool. That's fine. And that's all that really matters. Anybody else that says, hey, it says, oh, dude, another fucking podcast, really? Yeah. Who knows who that, and I'm not talking about yours. Like, Mike, when I started mine, like, oh, really? Like, yeah, someone challenged me to do it. And they challenged me to do it because I would say, once I get my own space, I'm going to start a Wake Up the Sun podcast, because that was my workout crew, 5:30 a.m. And I remember when I opened, I hadn't talked to this client. Hey, congrats on the space. When's the podcast dropping? They remembered. But I said I'd do it. Yeah. And then I did it. And it was so uncomfortable. And I tried video, and I didn't have this cool studio. And I just realized, I'm just going to do me and another person just talking. Yeah. Set of questions and run with it. Yeah. And it's been an amazing thing. People are like, well, why do you do it? I mean, we've done over 220 hours worth of podcasting. That's awesome. Which is not a lot compared to some of the things that are out there. Like, sure. The Rogans and the Chris Williamson or whatever. He's incredible. But I've learned so much from people. I've learned a lot of the same things. I've heard a lot of the same things, but I also have heard some stories, and I've heard some things where I know it's helping somebody else. And I know certain episodes touched people that otherwise wouldn't have said something or spoken out about whatever the topic was. So it's like, we're doing something right. And who cares if someone else, like, well, who's going to 179 subscribers?
127, I think.
27, excuse me. I heard 7 in there. 127 people, but those 127 people can tell one person, can tell one person, can tell one person.
Oh, absolutely.
And and this could be a national phenomenon, and I hope it is. Yeah. But at the same time, if it isn't, you still enjoy doing it, so that's why you're doing it. I enjoy doing it. That's why I'm here.
And back to like what we originally talked about, getting out of your comfort zone. That is. I know I have a good story. Yeah. I wanted to do something like this where talk to other people that have this same type story, whether it's in sports or the military or business, right? And to share those stories to help other people. Yeah. But so you had someone challenge you. I challenged myself where I was like, I'm just gonna do it, right? I'm like, because I was like, I just feel like everything's kind of pointing to this, and fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. Right. And it's like figuring out, hey, you know what? I really want to get in shape. All right, well, go get in shape. You can go for a walk. You can do 50 push-ups every 30 minutes. You could do it. No one's stopping you, right? And so that's how this was.
But it comes down to one thing. Is it a priority? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I got a couple questions for you. What are your thoughts on that?
In terms
when people ask you, and I'm going to turn my chair.
Go ahead.
There's mine. Yeah.
About making things a priority?
No, someone says, "Oh, I've never done this. I've never done that," and it's like you've done so much stuff, and you've done things that most people probably wouldn't even have dreamed of seeing or being a part of. But when, like, in the fitness world or whatever, anything, right? It's like anybody that says, "I've been trying to do this," that's not a priority.
No, I agree.
You made this a priority to do it. You made this a thing. What does it take to make things a priority?
It's funny that you say that. I was talking to somebody else about that in terms of you, and I'm sure you, same thing. You coach people, you talk to them, you're there to motivate and inspire and instill this work ethic or resiliency or grit or this go-get-it attitude. But at the end of the day, it's the person that you're talking to that has to internally flip that switch. Like, I can't reach in there and flip that switch. I can shout, I can yell, I can show by example, I can tell you my story, I can walk by you in robot legs, like I can show you pictures of me in the military. But at the end of the day, it's on you to make that choice to walk that path, right? And that's on them to make it a priority. If you make anything a priority, like you'll get it done. Like for me, my priority after I got injured was, all right, I need to figure out a way to walk. Like I got to get up and walk. And life in a wheelchair, you know, we're talking about the pity party. A lot of my therapists gave me this like 7-year-old kid with cancer type attitude of like, hey, I got it. You got no legs. You're probably gonna live life in a wheelchair, but it's okay. And I was like, fuck that, right? Like I was a college athlete. I was a tactical athlete. I was a Green Beret. I'm a dad. Like in my mind, I'm still the same 16-year-old lacrosse player that grew up playing hockey. Like that's who I am, right? Like I'm an athlete. I'm just an athletic person. So to tell me like, you know, life is in a chair now. And I fired my first therapist, and this is a true story.
Love that.
I was still inpatient at Walter Reed. This arm was still all banged up, and you know, like the muscle that they cut out of my back to stick in my forearm, and then they did the skin graft. So I was like that movie Rookie of the Year where the kid breaks his arm. So I'm like, I'm in this Dr. Evil motorized wheelchair, you know, moving around,
high-fiving people.
Yeah, exactly. This is stuck. Like I'm so banged up real bad. But they start inpatient physical therapy, and I'm like, yes. Let's go, right? And we go to the inpatient room, and you know, I'm still like, I'm wheeling down the hallway. We get in there, and like, you know, it's a lot of stretching, and I get it. I was 215
Give me the
pounds.
Fucking weights. I don't want the band.
And I get that. Like, there's a process, and we're getting into it, but I want to get after it. And I was 215 pounds, like, just fucking jacked, ready to go when I got injured. And I wake up in the hospital bed 135 pounds, right? So we're starting from scratch. And when I used to, like some of the workouts when I use like dumbbells, I'd use like 110 pound dumbbells for you know, do it for sets of 8 to 10. I was, that trip, I remember I cleanly squatted 405 5 times, like clean. And, you know, that's what I was doing. And then waking up and touching, I kid you not, touching a 10 pound dumbbell felt like a 70 pound dumbbell. Like it was incredible. And I'll have to show you some of the pictures of like just how like frail I was. So I remember getting on like the big table, and we're doing some like movements and stretching and stuff. I'm like, all right, like let's do some strength things. And she's like, well, let's wait for that tomorrow. And I was like, well, no, why wait till tomorrow? Like when we still have like 5-10 minutes left here of me, you know, worming around on this table legless, like I'll do something. And she's like, it's okay, we don't have to. And I was like, listen, I need you to go get those. I had her get those sandbags that you wear around your ankles.
Yeah, of course.
And I took like 2 5-pound sandbags, and I put them around each stump. And I hope that's not gonna fuck up everything.
You're fine.
Anyway, I put each sandbag around each stump, and then I did flutter kicks for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And she was like, she kind of looked at me out because I was like, I finished. I'm like, there we go. And she's like, well, did you prove your point? And I was like, yeah, we did. I was like, you're fucking fired.
Yep.
And I got in my like Dr. Evil chair and wheeled away. Right.
There goes that guy.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow. Well, it also, it's like, they say a lot like in the program, it's like pain is the touchstone of spiritual development, but pain is usually, it's a motivator. You're moving towards, you're moving away from pain or towards pleasure. And it's like, where's the comfort? Where's the discomfort? And I think a lot of people where it's like, I've coached over the years, or, you know, they're in a lot of pain. And, you know, they're, you know, you've heard some things, right, where like they say motivation is bullshit. Like you can't teach motivation. I don't think you can. You know, like you can motivate and hype people up, but unless people have had enough pain to really work on their circumstances and really work on whatever they're trying to focus on, whether it's in the fitness world, the business world, or, you know, the day-to-day life and daily tasks world, a family world, it's like, what are the things that are going to drive me to make this a priority? And you soon realize what makes, like you said, I want to do the things that make me feel good with the people that I love the most.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. When other people don't live up to that, or that expectation of it, not that it's a bad thing, it's just that might not be your person anymore. You might evolve from that person, or they may grow in a way where it's just like we just don't like we're good,
Yeah.
but like we're just not on the same page, which is fine. I don't want to be here anymore because maybe I'm behind the page or maybe I'm in a couple pages ahead, but like I want to do the things that make me feel good with the people that I love the most.
Yeah.
And sometimes that comes at a cost. And like you said, like whether it's somebody training you that doesn't think you're supposed to be at a certain place and whatever her protocol was or ever taught her, don't push, that she was wrong.
Yeah.
And that she no longer worked with you. But it's a funny thing kind of navigating that in the business world with if you happen to work with other people or contract with other people or, like you said, you're a contractor, whatever business it is. And it might work for a while, and then when it doesn't, navigating that, I have no problem. I obviously I don't like having tough conversations, but I'd rather come directly to someone and be like, hey, here's how I perceive this, and this is how I interpret this, and you like you said, like you took the weights and like this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
You watch, and then if this, it's her response could have been like, had she been like, wow, holy shit, like what a great job, and like.
Would have been different. I would have seen her the next day.
Right.
But instead.
And maybe that was a learned response from her, or that was something, maybe she was having a bad day, or she had worked with 10 other people that like, threw a weight at her head. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just was the wrong place at the wrong time, and you made a decision, and that was the best decision for you. And I think that's what's really hard, and it comes down to a lot of it when, in my experiences, when people like, if you and I were to shake hands on something, I would take you at your word for it. And I know that's not a real thing in a lot of places, but to me it is.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's how I was kind of brought up. It's like your word is, it's so corny. Your word is your bond. And it's okay to change your mind and to do things, but if it comes at the cost or affects someone else, don't expect them to stick around, right? And I've had a lot of people like, well, hey man, it's business. Okay, great. It's not personal. I got it. But it's funny when that switches and you have to be the one like, hey man, as per what you shared, it's business, not personal, but it's personal for them.
Yeah.
It's always personal to the person that takes it personal.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard not to sometimes, right? When you deal with that, where, it's like whatever you're doing, or, it's just like, you want, again, let me speak for myself. I want to do the best that I can by people, doing what I love with the people I love the most.
Yeah.
And it's really simple. And
it's a great mission statement for like life or your life, right?
Right. It works for me,
yeah.
And I would want someone to be honest with me. And again, I've been in places where, have been not, where I've learned how not to do things.
Yeah.
Or how I don't want to be a part of things. And I used to be like, oh, fuck, what a waste of time. But it's not. It's, wow, I learned I learned that I don't want to be a part of that. And it doesn't make me feel good or good about what I'm doing or who I am or how I'm trying to grow as a person or excel in whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Serious.
Shoot.
Shopping carts. Do you return them to the cart corral or back up front or one of both?
I walk them back.
Oh my God.
I actually have video on my Instagram of me doing that one day.
Do you follow Cart Narcs?
No. What is it?
May I suggest that?
Oh, is it an Instagram?
It's phenomenal.
See, I do it because I live I just have the idea kind of beaten into me, and I think it's from doing the special forces route. One of the great things I don't know where I picked it up, but you're always being assessed, right? You're always being watched, and to live to
I'm gonna turn around and face you with that one.
To kind of like live your life that way, right? Of like you're always being assessed.
Love that.
I return the cart, or I'd say 99.9% of the time I return the cart. There's probably a good reason why I didn't return the cart if it doesn't get returned.
Can I say that? I feel like, and again, if people saw you return a cart,
yeah,
I think everybody would return a cart.
Oh yeah, that too. Like this guy with no legs walking the cart back, right? Yeah.
I've heard the opposite argument. Well, you're taking away from someone's job, and I'm like, Is there a special cart person?
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Someone
I don't
has
think
to
someone gets
leave
hired
what they're doing inside to come out into the 100-degree heat.
and go police up all the carts.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's in the corral, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Corral or back front. Why not return it to the air conditioning? It's one of those things where people are like, bro, and it has. There's so many funny things out about it, and it mostly the best one I saw is like, I don't judge you by how you treat your kids or your parents or this or that. I judge you by, do you return your card?
Yeah.
And it's like, you shouldn't be judging anybody. However,
Yeah.
it's like, if you can walk your ass to use the cart and walk your ass to the car, you can walk your ass back.
100%. Yeah.
It's always a question I like throwing out there.
That's a great. Do you use that for interview questions when you're interviewing people?
I have done a whole podcast on returning the shopping cart.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On my Instagram, because I know I just started following you last night
yep.
because I was doing my show prep, which is
Yep.
basically me just scrolling through and looking at your life. And but on my Instagram prep, there was specifically I had to go get, so in our house we have a very high living room. Gina loves Christmas. I love Christmas.
Yeah.
But she's one of these people that, another great interview question, do you put your tree up, when do you put your tree up? Pre-Thanksgiving or post-Thanksgiving?
So my tree is up, and my tree was put up the day. We did Saturday. So
Okay.
After Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving.
We wait.
So November 1st, our tree goes up.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My brother jokes about it that he's going to call the cops on us.
Right.
But
I know people that leave their tree year round.
I think there's something else. I think that's just laziness.
It's funny. It was a family friend, and we walked in their house in the middle of the summer in like the west coast of Florida.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's like it was like in their foyer.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, it looks really good. And it's June.
Well, that's why, and I'm all for it, like for the seasonally
It makes you feel
putting
good.
up because it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the holidays.
Yes.
Why keep it? If you have the ability to keep it out for an extra month, like okay, keep it out there.
Yeah.
Right?
When does it go away though?
Before
New Year's Eve, right?
I can't remember. It's like the week after New Year's Eve. Maybe it's up for New Year's and then it comes down. But it comes down, I feel like, just as in one quick military operation.
Yeah, we try in the week between Christmas and New Year's. It comes down.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to be cleaning up a Christmas tree. No,
Yeah.
it's the first of the year.
Exactly.
Just don't wanna do it.
But so big tree, our lateral. It's like I'm telling.
Well, I'm
it's like-
excited to see it at your.
Oh, you're
holiday
coming.
party. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
I mean,
You'll see it.
Just putting it out there. We typically don't do those things because we go to bed very early.
Yeah.
So we not be there the latest,
No, that's fine.
but we are excited to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We go to sleep pretty early too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is.
And I identify with you sharing before. You don't want 100 people in your house.
Yeah.
I don't like having like 10 people in my house.
Yeah. But I know. I guess I have 127 subscribers, so maybe there's 100 of them in there. So if they're listening, I love all 100
Yes.
of them. Yeah.
For one night. It's great.
But I had to go get a ladder so that way she could get to the top of the tree to put the star on. And of course, the only ladder that goes up that high was this like 250-pound like gorilla ladder
Yep.
that I put on my shoulder, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to put this on. This is going to be a social media thing because this is an event. This is like a life
It's a
event.
thing.
This is like, all right, this is today's
It's
workout.
postable.
Today's workout is called life.
Yeah.
And I had to lug this thing, to the cart, get it on the cart, push this cart, and of course it doesn't like just glide straight down the aisle, check out. And then I was like, yeah, of course, like I did this. Of course that's like, if I was back at selection, this is the one thing that they would grade you on. Like, yeah, you did all that heavy stuff, but are you going to do what is the right thing when no one's looking? And, to the seriousness of it, that's part of being a Green Beret, and the things that we do is, it's not just like the Hollywood stuff. There's a lot of other missions that you do as a Green Beret where it's one or two of you in country X that you wouldn't think about. Like, why are we in country X doing things for strategic purposes? No one's watching. Like, you're not reporting to somebody every day, but you're there because you are adult enough to go do those things and not have to be like, all right, are you fucking around, right? So
I love that.
So yeah, so my cart goes back.
I love that.
Yeah.
See? Return your card. Man. Love that.
But well, look, Matt, I think that's a good place to end it. I mean, we've been talking for like almost over an hour, definitely.
That was awesome.
So, but I'm so glad that you're able to come on. I'm gonna eat a FROPRO in the car, headed back home for sure.
Prior to dinner, I love it.
Well, Well, yeah, I'm actually going to meet a friend for picanha at later tonight. So this is the perfect holdover.
Love it.
Yeah. Hopefully you come back on again in the future.
This is great. There's obviously, we have a lot of other questions I'm sure we could dive into.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
This
bro.
is awesome.
I appreciate
Thanks for tuning in to Team Harrow. Matt Williams showed us the power of resilience and community. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review to help us inspire more listeners. Until next time, stay strong and keep pushing forward.